Welcome back, everyone. We are First Seed Sports, Dante, Mike, Kyle, and Zach, and we are here with another start and sit for this week, week 8. The season is now halfway. We're almost at the halfway point. It will be in between this week and next week, so safe to say the season is flying by. But we still have that. That just means that's good news. We still have half of the season left to enjoy. Coming up, we got playoffs to look forward to. So these are the make or break weeks, and that's what we're here for. We're here to help you out. So without any further ado, Kyle, take it away. Who's your start of the week?
My start of the week, I'm going to get us started with Brandon Aiyuk, the wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers. They face the Seattle Seahawks, and that alone is a healthy start. Deebo Samuel went down with an injury and is already marked out for this game. And Aiyuk had a great game last week. He had a career high of 6 receptions, 115 yards, and they face a much weaker defense in Seattle as compared to New England last week. And he's been a steady producer in terms of fantasy so far this season. I think he's had 21, 13, and then 7 and 9 the past few weeks. I think he's going to have a great week, and I expect big things out of him.
Yeah, Brandon Aiyuk, I think it's a must start this week. Like you said, no Debo. San Francisco's always had that one weapon, I feel like, in past years that they just abuse if they can. And Seattle, obviously, we saw what they gave up to Arizona. So another divisional matchup here. I think Aiyuk has a big day.
Yeah, I agree with you guys said. Obviously, it's kind of different because Arizona has DeAndre Hopkins, but as opposed to as 49ers and Aiyuk goes, he's being utilized in that offense way more. Garoppolo's kind of hitting his stride after, earlier in the season when it seemed like he was kind of hitting a rough patch. So they're both getting familiar with the offense. They're both connecting with each other, establishing that rapport. So for those reasons alone, and after that great performance he had last week, I see no reason why not to start him.
So I think we're starting to see kind of the birth of one of the more underrated stars of this receiving class of 2020, because this has really been a pretty remarkable rookie class in terms of Higgins and Jefferson, and not to mention CeeDee Lamb and Judy and Ruggs, but Aiyuk is kind of flown under the radar, and I think that he's a great start this week. He's really coming into his own. Okay, let's continue on. Mike, who is your start of the week?
So I'm going with Boston Scott this week as my start of the week. So last week, it was his second game of the season without Miles Sanders, and in the first game of the season, when Miles Sanders was out, he had a 54% snap share, and he didn't do much with it. 9 attempts for 35 yards, 2 catches for 19 yards. So below 10 fantasy points as a starter was not good. But then last week against the Giants, Miles Sanders is out, and he had a 70% snap share. He went 12 for 46, and he had caught 3 of his 5 targets for 46 yards and a touchdown. So they're playing a banged-up Dallas Cowboys team this week. Whether Miles Sanders somehow makes an appearance in this game or not, whatever running back is starting for Philadelphia, that's the guy I want. I think that Philadelphia goes up big early, and I think that towards the fourth quarter, you're going to get a lot of garbage yards from Boston Scott.
Yeah, it was weird last week. Boston Scott had actually a rough game until that last-minute touchdown kind of saved his fantasy production and boosted him to 18 points. But this week against Dallas, I don't see how he doesn't smash, because Dallas is rough in all aspects on defense, and I don't think Philly will have to play from behind at all this game, so they're just going to be able to run it, and Boston Scott's going to be that guy.
Yeah, I agree. There's not really much I can add on that end. The Cowboys defense is atrocious. I think the Eagles are going to be able to, run up the points on that end, and then through garbage time alone, Boston Scott's going to get the touches and get the opportunities to boost up his fantasy value. Yeah.
And I guess I'll just keep building. Again, I wasn't expecting Boston Scott to do much last week. I didn't put in any waiver claims for him. I know that he was taking over a lead back role, but I personally didn't want to buy in because the last time we saw him in a lead back role was in week 1, and he only put up 7 points. And then in week 2, he only put up 7 points again. And I just didn't really buy into the fact that he was going to put up decent numbers. But that wasn't the case, obviously. He had a nice week, and he actually put up 18 points. So against an extremely exploitable Dallas defense, I think that he's a great start this week. That is barring the fact that Miles Sanders does not return. I noticed he was listed as questionable earlier on today, so that means that there probably is a chance that he goes this week, especially being a late Sunday night game. But I think that if he does not go, I really like the start here. So I guess long story short for me, keep your eyes on Miles Sanders. If he's out, fire up your Boston Scotts. But if he is in, I would immediately put him on the bench. So. Okay, for myself, I have picked Kareem Hunt as my start of the week. I've been crazy about Kareem all season long. So long story short, though, I think against a very weak rushing defense for the Raiders, I think that Hunt is actually going to be able to put up a lot of points. The Raiders currently have the 28th ranked rush defense, and they are allowing on the season 4.6 yards per carry to running backs. And anytime that Kareem Hunt manages to get over that 4 yard per carry mark, he usually performs pretty well in fantasy point value. In the 4 weeks that he went over that 4 yard per carry mark, he finished with 12 points, 19 points, 24 points, and 19 points. So I really like Kareem Hunt this week, especially against a weak Las Vegas defense. And realistically, this could be the last time that we see Hunt alone in the backfield. That is without Nick Chubb, because after this week they go into their bye, and Chubb is projected to be back week 10 against Houston. So Kareem Hunt is my start of the week.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to say Kareem Hunt's going to have a good game because I think we all know he will. But I think this is going to be a smash game for him. It's weird looking at his stat line. He hasn't had a game with over 86 yards is his highest rushing total, and then 26 is his highest receiving total for yardage. And to be honest, for Kareem Hunt, that's kind of crazy. But against the Raiders, their rush defense is 28th, like you said. They're not great. They're not good at all. And I think this is Hunt's first huge week as a RB1.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm looking at his stat line right here. I don't know if you guys would know the answer to this. I don't have him, sadly, in any league this year. But right now, as of last week, was his highest snap percentage out of the entire season. Would you guys know why that's the case? Why he played 89% of the snaps, and then in weeks prior it was 52 and 70?
I'm just going to butt in quick. I think against Pittsburgh, they were getting blown out of the water so early in that game that they immediately went to the passing game. And that led to, I think his name is D'Ernest Johnson, being in there a little bit more and seeing a little bit of a higher snap count. And then in week 5, he was at 70, which is respectable, I think. So, and obviously prior to that, his snap counts 51, 36, 44, 34. He's splitting the field with Nick Chubb. Those are the weeks before Chubb went down. So I think that's just the discrepancy in the snap counts. But, that 89% is really comforting moving forward.
Yeah, Mike, I'm looking at it, and it's D'Ernest Johnson was the one that was carrying 30% of the snaps, but he only touched the ball a max of 13, and that was week 4 when they were blowing out Dallas. So I don't see anybody really butting in.
Right, yeah, and I don't think he does either. From what you guys told me, it seems like D'Ernest is in there mainly to pass block in most situations. So, so like just to add on, I really do think that Kareem Hunt is starting to look up. Obviously, from last week, they played a little bit of a weaker team in the division rival Cincinnati Bengals. So this week they got one more game before the bye. I expect him to go balls out, and he's definitely a must start. I think he exceeds his expectations for this week.
Yeah, to piggy off that, I agree. He's obviously a must start, but I think there is concern that, especially in the game against the Raiders, that there might be a need for Dearness Johnson to be on the field more just for that passing attack. I think because Baker Mayfield had such a great game last week, they might tend to lean on that a little bit more. And that means, more touches in terms for Dearness rather than Kareem. But that's only if the game is super competitive. And that's like the only thing I could think of that could potentially affect his fantasy value in any way. But yeah, besides that, I mean, he's an obvious lock. Everyone should start him regardless of the situation.
Okay. I think really when it comes to Kareem Hunt, I think that they're going to be in the game with Vegas, much like they were last week with the Bengals, probably for the entirety of the game. And we saw what that did for Hunt's snap count. So that put him through the roof. So I look to see a similar game to last week. Okay. Last but not least, Dante, who was your start of the week?
So I'm going to go with Hunter Henry, tight end for the Chargers. Overall, Henry's kind of had a disappointing season. I think everyone had him projected at least the top 10 tight end, and right now he's ranked 14th. This past week alone, he did have the second most targets behind Keenan Allen, which was 13. Oh, Keenan Allen had 13. But I think the connection between Herbert and Hunter is going to only improve. Looking at his other targets or his other games, 4 catches, 23 yards, touchdown. That kind of saved him there. 2 catches, 39 yards. But then before that, he had 5 catches and 6 catches. But that might have been when Tyrod was playing. So, again, I think that Henry is next to Keenan Allen. Henry is the next best option. And it's only a matter of time before those targets started turning to completions. Also, Denver, they're allowing almost a dozen fantasy points per game to tight ends. So I think that alone kind of puts Henry in the forefront, at least for tight. He's a top 5 tight end. I'm not going to say start him in front of Darren Waller or like Travis Kelce, any of those guys. But in terms of like if you don't have any of those premier tight ends, I think Hunter Henry is the next best bet.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Those targets, he's second on the team in targets by a long shot. It's Keenan Allen at 63, Hunter Henry at 42, and then it's a huge drop to Mike Williams at 25. So the targets are there. He's definitely being at least tried to be utilized by Herbert, but those receptions just aren't there. Like he's not making them. But at some point they're gonna hit. And Denver, yeah, they're kind of middle of the pack with tight end fantasy points. Totally could be this week. I see it.
Yeah, and I have his stats pulled up right now to go off of what you were saying. I just think that the opportunity's there. He only has 1 game below 7 targets this year, and it was against Tampa Bay. And as I'm looking at the stats here, I'm trying to look for a pattern, and I really don't see one. Like I just said, Tampa Bay, he only had 4 targets, and Tampa Bay is known for their run defense. Obviously, one of the best run defenses in the league, and obviously one of the best teams in the league. And then last week he played Jacksonville, and he had a rough day. And Jacksonville is not one of the best teams in the league. So I really don't see a pattern there, but maybe like Kyle said, the volume's there. Maybe it's just going to hit one day. And so I definitely think that he could be a good start this week. But he's sneakily at tight end number 14 in PPR. In years past, I think he's always been top 10. So it's definitely been a struggle, but like you guys said, maybe he turns it around this week and does something good.
Yeah, I just kind of want to state a couple facts. I don't necessarily want to go one way or the other on Hunter Henry. One thing I do want to say is that he has 1 touchdown on the season, and I think that that's kind of an outlier. He's generally a touchdown hog. He kind of is one of the main red zone targets. And I think it's a little bit of an oddity that a young rookie tight end isn't looking to his a young rookie quarterback isn't looking to his tight end as much as some others do. There isn't much of a pattern in terms of his production, but we've seen about 67% of the time he has finished with over 10 points. So I like him. I like him to hit. I'll take those odds. I'll take 2 out of 3 odds that he'll hit this week. So. All right, let's hop over to the other side. Let's look at our sits of the week. These are guys that we're not going to be looking to put into our lineups. Kyle, who do you got?
I have both J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, the running backs for the Baltimore Ravens. They play the Pittsburgh Steelers this week, who are currently the 5th best running back defense for fantasy points. And that alone kind of spooks me. Then you add in the fact that it's a completely split backfield. They lost Mark Ingram, and kind of most of those touches went to Gus Edwards. And maybe this week they handed off to Dobbins a little bit more. But even so, they're playing a defense that was able to control Derrick Henry last week until a last-minute touchdown. I don't see either of them carrying startable fantasy value this week, but I can't trust putting them either of them into my lineups.
Yeah, and I think it's always hard to when the Ravens play the Steelers to pick out who's going to do good, who's going to do bad. It's just such a great rivalry. So I don't know. I mean, last week Gus Edwards he hit a 45% snap share, 14 carries for 26 yards. So like nothing special there, but I do think in this game, at least, I do think that he touches the ball at least 20 times in this game. If there is no Mark Ingram, I think it's going to be important for the Ravens to run the ball. So I don't think if they don't get the run game going this week, I think it's going to get ugly for them fast. Me personally, I don't think Lamar has what it takes to throw the ball to win a game. So in a game that is probably going to be the most watched game on television this week, I think that the Ravens are going to have to run the ball. So in that case, I don't want to necessarily go against the sit here, but I think that if you're looking for a flex and it's a tough decision, I think that I would play Gus this week.
Yeah, picking off that, the Ravens have one of the best passing attacks in football. And I think if I'm a Steelers coach, I'm understanding that and realizing, okay, we have to focus on the run immediately. So they're probably going to load the box and try to get as many big buys on Gus Edwards and Lamar Jackson or whoever's the running J.K. Dobbins as well. Whoever, seems to be like the focal point in terms of that rushing offense. And the Steelers' defense is just absolutely phenomenal. They've been playing lights out so far this season. So for those reasons alone, I agree with you, Kyle. I'd really stay away from anyone on the Ravens offense this week, unless you have like Lamar. But yeah, especially on that running game, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough.
I don't have much more to add other than the Steelers' defense is really, really good, and we saw that last week against the Titans. So yeah, I agree with that. I would fade Dobbins and I would fade Gus Edwards as well. All right, moving forward, Mike, who is your sit of the week?
So I'm going with Wayne Gallman this week. Like last week, I picked the running back against the Buccaneers to sit. And like I said last week, it was Josh Jacobs. And it's one of those situations where obviously nobody's going to sit Josh Jacobs if you have him on your fantasy team. But I just wanted to point out that like last week, they're playing the best run defense in the league. Josh Jacobs had 10 carries last week for 17 yards. He had a terrible fantasy day, as I predicted. So, I mean, Wayne Gallman with no Devonta Freeman. I know that head coach way too well, and Jason Garrett. So, if I know him well, he's going to run the ball until it doesn't work, and I think that's going to be the first quarter. And they're going to abandon the run, and I think they're going to go to the air very, very quickly in this game. So I'm fading Wayne Gallman this week.
I'm in a tough situation where I may find myself playing Wayne Gallman this week in a few leagues. And honestly, I don't have a problem with that. This Tampa Bay run defense, though, is terrifying. To be able to hold Josh Jacobs to just 17 yards is insanely good. So that alone may sway me to sitting Gallman, but just looking at the stats last week, and this is after Devontae Freeman went down, 10 attempts, 34 yards with a touchdown, and then 5 of 5 receptions and targets. Those targets and receptions alone, I feel, provide a steady baseline for fantasy value. But yeah, this Tampa Bay defense kind of spooks me. So I think you might have convinced me, Mike. I might have to bench him this week.
Yeah, as a G man, I always want as a fan, I always want Gallman to succeed, obviously, but as a fantasy football head now, I kind of have to look at it from an objective. And it looks like if Gallman is going to be utilized, it's probably going to be in the passing game more, because they're going to be down very early in that game. So I think the upside, if there is any upside for Gallman, is going to be those catches. Kyle, as he said, he had 5 catches last week in the receiving game. So I think those, if they utilize those options, and who knows, maybe they might get like a goal line situation where he could like snag a TD. But that's like wishful thinking. I agree that at this point, Gallman should be probably one of the last options if you have any.
Agreed. By and large, agreed. I think that with the potential of Devontae Freeman actually playing this week, and pair that with the terrifying Bucs defense, I just would like to stay away from Wayne Gallman if at all possible for me this week. So I think that's a fantastic sit of the week. Okay, for myself, I selected Diontae Johnson, who is kind of shaping himself up to be the wide receiver 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. For a couple reasons, and that was, first, he is banged up. He had a toe injury, and that's held him out of practice a couple times. I think I actually just had an update not too long ago. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, he was held out of practice today because of the toe. So that's in my mind a little bit. And not only that, the Ravens have an extremely tough secondary. Only one wide receiver has actually broken 100 yards against them this year, and that is Terry McLaurin. Diontae Johnson just I don't know. I'm still finding myself having a hard time trusting him as a wide receiver, which might sound crazy given his recent production. But I think that matched with his injury and paired with the matchup issues, I don't like him this week, and he's actually going to be my sit.
I think I have an extremely hard time sitting Diontae Johnson if he plays this week. If he's playing, I'm playing him. With the 3 full games that he's played, he's seen at least 10 targets, and that alone coming from Ben Roethlisberger is wealthy. He had 2 touchdowns last week in a huge game against Tennessee, and I don't see why they wouldn't go back to him this week in another big game against Baltimore. That's, again, if he plays. But, yeah, if Deontay's playing, I'm playing him, and that's kind of where I'm at with him this season. I think he's been a very, very solid fantasy asset.
Yeah, I agree. Deontay, I think, has finally emerged as the number 1 in Pittsburgh. I think he's the most talented receiver, and whether he is or not, Ben Roethlisberger loves him the most. So I don't know. The Ravens secondary is very, very good, just like last year. So I found myself going back to last year's stats, but they're 100% irrelevant because they didn't have Ben Roethlisberger. So there's really nothing to go off of to honestly predict this game other than he's Ben Roethlisberger's favorite target. And when Diontae Johnson's not on the field, it's Chase Claypool. So we were actually talking before the show, and I was saying, if Diontae is not on the field, I don't know if I want to play Juju Smith. And I have Juju in a few leagues as well, and I think that if Diontae doesn't play in this game, I don't think I'm playing Juju. Most of his snaps come from the outside when Diontae is not on the field, and Juju really strives on that slot role. So I don't know. I think this week with even the tough secondary, I think you got to play Roethlisberger's favorite target. But with that tough secondary, who knows? It might be a rough week for him.
Yeah, I mean, to just piggy off that, I think the bigger sit would be on that offense would be Juju. I think he's underperformed severely this season so far, and that's partly because of the fact that Dionte Johnson he's been playing so well. He's gotten Big Ben's his favorite target. It seems like over the past couple weeks, and I hate to regurgitate everything you guys just said, but that's what comes with being the last person. Yeah, I mean, the fact that, Big Ben throws the ball to him so much alone, upside for Deontay's. Yeah, I have to disagree with you on this, Zach. I think we're all just ignoring you on that one.
Yeah, that's fair. I completely understand. His injuries just worry me. I think he's proven that he's not a very durable receiver. In terms of he left the Houston game early, he left the Philadelphia game early, and he didn't play against Cleveland. So for the 3 games that Kyle mentioned that he had over 10 targets, he's also missed 3 games. So with an injury going into this game, that's just screaming, that he's going to leave the game early to me. And that worries me a lot. That not only that, we were talking about some of the other targets on the team for the Steelers, and the Ravens actually rank somewhere in the middle of the pack against fantasy points allowed to tight ends. So I could see a decent week out of Eric Ebron coming this week. If Ben's not able to push the ball down the field to his receivers, to Juju, to Deontay, to Claypool. So keep an eye on that. All right, Donte, you are up, unfortunately last, but let's get it in here. Who do you have?
I'm going to go with Cam Newton, a person that I've been rooting for almost as much as Russell Wilson up to this point. After those first 2 weeks, he had phenomenal numbers. He had 25 fantasy points the first week, 2 rushing touchdowns in the first 2 weeks. But it's no coincidence that, those first 2 weeks were against the Miami Dolphins and the Seattle Seahawks, who have one of the worst defenses in all football right now. And then, moving on from there, when he played an actual defense, he had 11 points against the Raiders, I want to say. Yeah. And then he had 18 points against Denver. And now he had arguably his worst performance in his career against the 49ers, when he being minus 0.18 points. It was his lowest yard and completion numbers of his career. And obviously it's partly because he got benched for Stidham throughout the game. But the way they're utilizing him in that offense, it just seems like if you can stop him, then the whole offense is just stagnant. And whatchamacallit, I think it's either Cam knows that it's make it or break it time. He said in this previous week that he knows that his position is up for grabs still. It's not solidified. So that in terms of upside, he could be playing with a chip on his shoulder even more than he already has been. But against that Buffalo defense, it's just not looking good. He has no receivers, and Harry, we're expecting him to at least progress a little bit. But it just seems like, that offense in total is just completely stagnant. And I don't think it's going to change against this great Buffalo defense.
Yeah, I think those are a lot of great points. All right, so those were our starts and sits for this week. That is week 8. Hopefully we hit the nail on the head. We don't want to admit to some of the ones we missed on last week, but hey, we're moving forward, right? Eyes forward. So that's all we got for today, guys. For Kyle, Mike, Donte, I'm Zach. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.